Andrew Hurst, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for taking my question. I was very pleased to hear you say that in the selection of our new Chief Executive, the AFL played very little role, if any. However, legally, the AFL does control the club. Our Constitution is very clear on that. And they will continue to do so until the development grant completion date, which is defined as the 31st of October 2028, or such earlier time as the Crows and the AFL agree. The critical words are such earlier time as the Crows and the AFL agree. So my question is this: are there any plans to enter discussions with the AFL to bring forward the date when the AFL will cede control of the club back to the members? And if not, I'd be interested to know why.
Well, thank you for your question. Those arrangements were put in place as the club shifted from West Lakes to Adelaide Oval, as you know. And part of the release of the licence from the ownership of the South Australian National Football League and the negotiated position between all parties, AFL, SAMFL and the club at that time, was the requirement for the timeline that you mentioned. At the end of that timeline, it automatically ceases in that context. There are a number of factors to consider. Independence is important, and that's why the board has ensured it's not an assisted club from the AFL, number one, because if you take on an assisted club from the AFL, then there are greater constraints and restrictions on you than an unassisted club. With our facilities, there's a number of factors to answer your question. It's going to take me a little while to answer it. There are a number of factors going forward where, with our new facilities, we want to be going to the AFL to get a grant from, a grant from, not a loan, a grant from the AFL to contribute, to ensure that we get a similar arrangement in place from other clubs. We will need to be financially self-sufficient without debt. We would need to demonstrate that we won't be at call to the AFL in future, which means that our financial security and base has got to be secured. We need to understand, in building a new facility, how and when and if we can claim a grant from the AFL. So all those factors will be taken into account to a decision. The fact that the board has consistently worked to be financially independent by borrowing ourselves rather than from through the AFL demonstrates a will at this club, at the earliest opportunity that we can, to pursue an independent line. And that will mean that the AFL having absolute confidence that we won't be back in the short term and seeking money to stay alive, or stay afloat, I should say. So it's a complex question. The arrangements are all put in place in good faith, but that I think my answer in relation to the way the board makes decisions, it's always seeking the greatest amount of independence it can from the AFL.
Thank you. My question is to you, John. I think I want to throw my support behind going to Thebarton Oval, because I think we need a strong SNFL team with a home base to support Matthew Nix's team. We also need a training ground for the girls' side, and the history that down at Thebarton Oval, it's a no-brainer. I mean, you want families to come and watch the game there. They have a home ground, because Port Adelaide play every second game at Alberton, and I'm tired of getting the benefit of that. And our SNFL team has to travel every game. So I think we need a home base, and the families who can't afford to come to Adelaide Oval to watch the AFL side, They've got young children and they will go to Thebarton Oval and those children will grow up to support the Crows. So please, will you not look anywhere else but Thebarton Oval? Okay. Thank you.
I got the message. Can I just say to your point, look, Thebarton Oval has, from a historic point of view, it's a footy oval. It's always been a footy oval. The amateurs have been down there. And if the final analysis is to settle on Thebarton, what you have is a first in Australia. Amateur, local, league, elite football, all housed in the one precinct with the capacity of 2 ovals. And the context of that of being the first of its kind in Australia, I think is a good career path for young people wanting to aspire to elite football. There's a natural progression through there. And to your point about Sample, we came from Sample. It is our future in that they are the young players of the future coming through. And a talent pathway, elite pathway, has got to be available for young people. To your point, Thebarton offers a lot of advantages in that context. There's a number of negotiations that need to take place. It clearly is sort of the top of the list that we're working through.
Thank you. Mr. Olsen, I apologise for my poor speaking ability, but I'd like to touch upon the portion of your journey that you had up on the board regarding a deeper member connection. Now, having a young family about 20 years ago, we used to come to the footy and after the footy pop around to the shed afterwards. It was a fantastic facility. It was a place that we could catch up with friends that we didn't sit with, but we'd catch up with them after the game, discuss it, have the game played on the big screen at the same time. Fantastic environment for a family. Look, we've moved on and we don't have that. I understand that. But you've lost probably a bit of lineage. My kids don't come to the footy anymore. They're not interested. There's nothing there. There's no community that sort of revolves around that after-game experience where you can see players casually talking to each other, board members, kids mucking around the footy in the corner, something to eat after the game instead of having to go venture across to the city or jump on a train and go straight home. Now, we were promised that by the SNA, and I know it was brought up previously. I just want to know, where are we at with it? Is that going to still be on the agenda? Is what's happening with it? Okay.
It'd be very hard to replicate the shed as we knew it. I mean, one of the advantages of the shed was it was an era where the broadcast responsibilities of coaches, players, administrators wasn't as demanding as it is today. That's number one. Two, if you're down at West Lakes, it took you 45 minutes to get out of the car park, so you went to the shed while the cars disappeared. That's the second point. And the players were more inclined to go back, almost to a person, to the shed to interact. So I understand how that was really valuable and an enjoyable component. In fact, Matthew and I had a discussion only a week or two ago. The days are blending in. It was recently. In relation to how can we make the experience here at Adelaide Oval better. Now, there's going to be a major redevelopment of the tennis centre. Now, I don't know whether that could work. After the redevelopment of that tennis centre, perhaps there's an opportunity for us to do something like the shed over there. But once again, that's complicated with the negotiations between the SMA and Tennis South Australia. So that is, it'll be a construction zone this season, so you won't be able to use it this season, but perhaps next year, 2022, that's something that could be built. In the meantime, we're looking at how we improve the McGarry room experience by ensuring a number of players are available to go to the McGarry room, and we were going to work through how we might make that a more interesting, stimulating and enjoyable thing for young people to be involved in. So, very conscious of it. Matthew is supportive of, with his players groups, having greater involvement in something like that. So we're on a journey.
Yeah, we've definitely spoken about it at length, and I think the aim for us is to get back to being a footy club, and that's what you're talking about. It's the experiences outside of just the 120 minutes of game time. This year we experienced exactly the opposite, and I think you realise how much you miss it when you're in a bubble and the players have got no fans in the stand and there's no aftermatch and so on. So we'll be driving that hard. It is tough at Adelaide Oval at this point, but as far as that member recognition and being around our members and supporters, and our players are going to embrace that. It's just a matter of how we do it.
Mr. Chairman, my question was covered in a sense by the first speaker. Someone else might have told you that I've been a regular commentator about the need for the members of the Adelaide Football Club to own the club. I started that way back when Sandford owned the Adelaide Crows, and I used to stand up and argue against that. Bob Hammond always was supportive of my view, and so was Bill Sanders. Then when we swapped, which no one got consulted about, to be taken over by the AFL Commission. I only found out that about two years later, when at this meeting Rob Chapman explained. So ever since, on and off, I've been asking the question of why this club cannot be owned by the people who support it, the 60,000, 70,000 people. It is our club. It is not the AFL Commission. The AFL Commission appoint absolutely the whole board. You announced today that the two women, Kate and Linda, had been appointed for another 4 years. Who appointed them? They were appointed on your recommendation to the AFL Commission. Well, sorry, they own the club. If they gave it to someone else to do, they are 100% owner of the Adelaide Football Club, as is Port Adelaide, because of that financial arrangement when we shifted here to Adelaide Oval for it. I do note that we've now got a great new CEO, comes from Hawthorn. I did ring Jeff Kennett some time ago, and he said, "Shotty, what? I would jump through windows to smash up if the AFL Commission told the Hawthorn Footy Club who they would appoint to run the Hawthorn Footy Club. They were the Hawthorn members vote to the board. The board has the power to second more people. Now, and during that period where we made one grand final, Hawthorn made 5 grand finals and won 4 premierships with the membership owning the club and electing the board. Once you treat the membership properly, they will take reasonable decisions to have a balanced board, different views. If you treat us as kids, that we're all going to appoint the last 4, 5, 6 footballers to be on the board, that doesn't happen at Hawthorn. You get a good mixture. So I just want to say the only way this club is really going to entrench itself a mile deep into the Adelaide community is have the 60,000 members genuinely owning the club by voting every year for at least 1 or 2 or 3 directors. They each get a 3 or 4 year term. And I just think you've got till before 2028, as the previous speaker said. You can start negotiations now. If we only owe $4 million according to the annual report, you are in a basis in the next couple of years with average good management, which I think you'll do, to pay all the debt off and then go to the AFL Commission and say, we want the restructuring, and when you draw the new constitution up, you'll make sure a majority of the board over a period of time is elected by all the members. And I think that is just really important for the long term. I finally congratulate you on talking now about Thebarton. I thought it was always a cracker's idea to try to go into the Adelaide Parklands and have the blue that occurred in the community about it, and I went to a couple of the meetings. So I think I agree with the previous speaker. I'd probably rather, as an old Nord man, have it at Nord but I more than accept that Thebarton would be a very good base with all of those facilities. But please start the negotiation now and forewarn the AFL Commission this is coming, that we want to own our own football club.
Well, I don't think I can add much to my previous answer.
My question will be directed to Mr Tim Silvers, and on behalf of all the Adelaide members, welcome to the greatest club in the land and the team for all South Australians. You'll find living here in Adelaide, we come from a two-team town and we tend to get overlooked quite a bit by the AFL, and I'd like for you to support Matthew Nix this year. I've heard a lot of stories about clubs in Victoria that have umpires go to their club and actually train with them for a whole week. Now, bearing in mind some of the new rules, especially one standing on the man on the mark, I can see this completely wrecking our season at some stage. I'd like to see an umpire from Victoria, not from South Australia, because I believe we get South Australian umpires come. I'd like to see Victorian umpires come and actually get to know the players at the club and train with them through the whole week and show them how they interpret rules.
Just on, I may be able to answer that one for you, Tim. We have Victorian umpires that come across and spend time with us, so I do appreciate you coming to fight for me. That's great. We have South Australian umpires for the last 2 weeks because of the inability to travel interstate, but we've had Victorian umpires come across at request, and we use them pretty much twice a week. So we do get that opportunity. We aren't disadvantaged in that space at all.
We fly as one. Firstly, congratulations, Mr Olsen, and I wish you all the best. And also, Tim, welcome to the club. Sir, I'm a grassroots football person. I start that every year when I present at the members. So I'm interested in centre-half backs, centre-half forwards, midfielders and ruckmen. So before I continue, I'd like to acknowledge that Rob Chapman and Fags got us to the grand final in 2017, and we shouldn't forget that. It's no mean feat to come second. So I've been around football clubs for 55 years, and I'm concerned about the playing list. I'm very concerned how we are unprepared for the rigours of the AFL season. And I want to know who's accountable for the playing list that we have today.
Yeah, I can answer that one. It's a hard one to answer because I see the list in a different space. I've been around a number of football clubs that have been in a similar position to what we have. The game's designed to, look after teams that are underperforming and keep their quality throughout the competition. So there's a draft put on every year. Now, teams that finish in the middle of the table around 9th to 10th don't take an advantage out of any of that draft. This year, unfortunately, we finished towards the bottom. Part of that finishing towards the bottom means we get an opportunity to pick up some of the best talent around the country. Teams that have done that within the last 3 to 5, 6 years have been Brisbane, Richmond, Port Adelaide. Haven't been down there but have recruited extremely well, but have finished towards the bottom. I was there when it happened, and I've seen the list, and I mentioned it earlier where you're talking about players from 4 to 6 years ago who are now fighting out for last year, what some would have said maybe Port Adelaide should have won the flag. So it can turn pretty quickly. A list is never as bad as what people say, and a list is never as good as what people say. I'm really confident in our list at the moment. If I do a comparison to where I saw Brisbane, for example, 3 years ago, I'm confident that we can turn things around really fast with the group of players we've got. We'll only benefit from what we picked up this year in the draft, and we just spoke about Riley Thilthorpe, who for us was pick 1 in the draft. He may have gone at 2 because of different AFL rules, but it's only a matter of time before we build Riley into the player that we know he can be. And that's going to take time, that's going to take patience. I hope you stick with us through that.
Well, I've stuck with the club for 30 years, so I'm not going to walk away. But we are weak at centre-half forward, we're weak at centre-half back, we're weak in the second ruck.
Have faith.
I do have faith, madam, and I wish you'd let me finish with every courtesy. And it doesn't make your job easier, Matthew, I acknowledge that. Thank you, and we fly as one.
Thank you.
Just have these last couple of questions here, just conscious of everyone's time, and the chairman and the coach will be available for one-on-one chats after as well. So, last few questions for the people standing.
I'm shrinking. I haven't got a question. I hope I'm a bit more refreshing than the last gentleman. I don't think we've got much hope, but I would like to say I feel really buoyant about our future, and I commend you, Mr. Olsen, for your strength and the way you have talked to us. And Matthew, hope you enjoy my sausage rolls when I take them. And what worries me with some of our members, you keep bringing up about the shed. The shed is gone. And it's nothing to do with Adelaide Oval, it's to do with the transport, because you've got people who rush out, get onto the buses. Who goes to Port Adelaide? Do you know how many go to Port Adelaide after a match? No one. No, they don't, after a footy match. They go on a Thursday night when the players apparently join them over a meal and talk to them. And that's been my beef a little bit, is I sit in the legends part, we never see anyone from the club. Never see a person. I went to the basketball the other night. The entertainment centre is, they go early, the committee put pictures of the basketballers around the oval. There's really nothing around Adelaide Oval, is there? And we don't see anyone. So I would just wish that we could get more conversations going with our members from the board and from even the SANFL players. Could they pop around and say hi to people? Glad to see you. That's all.
Thank you, Colleen. I don't want to overpromise anything, but I will do what we can to get players to the Legends Room, and happy birthday.
Hello. Congratulations on your appointment, Mr. Olsen. I note that last time, when you were Premier of South Australia, was the last time we won any premierships. So now that you're on board here, I hope you can continue that. And Mr. Silva, congratulations on your appointment. I'm sure you've had a fun day. I had a long rant, which I won't bore everyone with, but we've had, let's just say, terrible results in the last 3 years. We've collected our first wooden spoon. We've turned over, off the top of my head, Scott Camporelli, Andrew Fagan, Brett Burton, I can't remember now, a number of staff. We've done many things wrong, I think, in the last 3 years. I'm interested to know, why didn't anyone on the board be held accountable for this? Or should we have talked to the board and said, this is not good enough? As I've seen the entire club turn over the playing list, the staff, but the board has not changed. I appreciate it's a tough one.
It has, I'm there.
Yes, and I'm very glad you're the replacement.
Thank you for that. But look, Nick joins the board. this year. So there've been some changes around the board table. And there's, look, we'll work through the board composition, skills matrix as we go forward. There's a lot of work to be done in the future. But I want to come back to, yes, we've had a couple of adverse years, 3 adverse years. But if you take adverse environment and you steel yourself for what might come, your better and greater results come as a result of it. So we've had our feet held to the fire, but we are better and will come out better for it. And to the comments that somebody else made about, well, Matthew, about optimism, my point of view about optimism, if you go down and see these guys train and the way they interact, I'm not over-egging it by saying there's a different vibe. There is a different vibe in the place, and it's really encouraging. And Matthew Nix and Adam Kelly, and being open and transparent and wanting to talk more and open up, is bringing people into the inner sanctum, getting greater confidence of what these guys are doing and building over the next couple of years.
Hello, gentlemen. I'm a 30-year member as well as some of the other people have spoken. Yeah, I'm sad to see the club in the position it's in. The first thing we've got to do is recognise that we are a mediocre club. We haven't won a flag for 22 years. So the first thing we've got to realise is the position we're in. Now, I look at the club over the last 6 or 7 years and we've had some elite players. So my question gets back to, and the reason I want an answer, I know you two guys, Matthew, you've worked at Sydney and Port, player retention at Adelaide Football Club has been disgraceful. We have lost 7, 8 elite players just walked out, and we wonder why we haven't won a flag. Well, there's your reason. So my question is, what are we doing to lift player retention and create a culture where players want to stay?
What are we doing? You would have seen the board make very significant changes, and we've mentioned it: coach, general manager of football, 3 assistant coaches. A number of very hard decisions were made by the board to restructure. Out of that has come a new culture that's being developed by Matthew Nix down there for his playing team, with the approach of looking after one another so that it's a good place to be and go to work. One of the players said to me, senior players said to me the other day, I'm not coming to work now, I'm coming to an enjoyable place. That is where you start on player retention in the long term. Make it an environment that people feel comfortable with. And these guys are driving that environment and culture within the club. And it'll take a little while for you to see the benefits of that. And in relation to list management, they are working overtime in the context of player retention. And I'm reasonably confident that over the next couple of weeks, you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Could I just ask Matthew, you've been at Sydney and Port Adelaide. Can you give us a description of the Adelaide Football Club and how we fit in comparison?
Where we currently are? Yeah, I've been at the Giants as well. So reasonably good comparisons I can give. And again, I've got to be mindful of over-promising. But I can guarantee you the group of players we've got now, if you have patience, will give you what you're after, which is sustained success. That's what we're after. Without guaranteeing anything, we will keep players, we will retain players. That's what we're doing. That's the number one focus, is make the environment enjoyable and the environment a developing environment to be around. I'm really confident we've got a number of players that we're looking to re-sign now. I'm really confident we'll re-sign those players, those that we want to keep. Okay. And so I think when you talk about the club losing top-level players, there's a little more to that than what you know. Sometimes there are players that, for a culture of a footy club, may not fit, and we'll make decisions around that. But I'm really confident the playing group we've got at the moment are the right playing group, and we'll add to that at the end of this year, and we'll continue to add to that high-quality people and high-quality players. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thanks again to the chairman and the senior coach for answering those questions, and also thanks to everyone for coming along tonight, and I guess having the opportunity to have your say.